is the host of the Kudlow Report on CNBC and, of course, the Larry Kudlow Show right here on WMAL Saturdays at 7 p.m. And Larry Kudlow, thanks for joining us this morning, as always. So the Senate looks like they're going to vote on Jack Lew. Did you see that the Wall Street Journal yesterday called him Forrest Gump at the Treasury?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, we covered that story.
Well, that's going to leave a mark, isn't it?
Well, look, the issue here is this revolving door and crony capitalism. And it just seemed like this guy, because of his, connections in government, got guaranteed bonuses from Citigroup. Actually, no one can figure out why NYU gave him a severance pay. He left NYU to go to Citigroup voluntarily. No one can figure out why they gave him a severance pay except to curry favor with a future government official. Then Citigroup gives him this guarantee that if he leaves the bank for some high-level federal position, he gets it. Not, mind you, as the Journal points out, not if he leaves the government for a non-profit or to run the Red Cross, but if he leaves to go to the federal, Treasury Department or White House senior position. This is just revolving door stuff, and I thought this kind of crony capitalism was going to be taken care of by Team Obama. They said they'd want transparency, and they didn't. And the guy didn't tell the truth. I mean, the guy says, I don't remember this, I don't remember that. And he's going to regulate Citigroup, right? He's going to be the regulator at the Treasury. Too big to fail, all the rest of it. He was at Citibank when they got bailed out to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars. So it really has an odor to it. It has a very bad odor to it.
All right, I want to talk to you about what the heck happened on Wall Street yesterday. We took a 216-point drop in the Dow, and it all has something to do again with Europe and Italy.
Yeah.
Fill me in on this.
Well, the Italian election was dysfunctional in the sense that nobody won the Italian election, which is a very odd thing. And the center-right coalitions or the center-right people like Berlusconi, I thought Berlusconi was dead. In fact, I thought he was going to jail on a morals charge. But in fact, he's back. He got as many votes as the sort of austerity center-left coalition. And what you're left with is nobody can run the lower house and the upper Senate. There's not enough votes to run either. And as a result, Italy is gridlocked. They're completely gridlocked. They probably have to call another election. So everybody's worried that the austerity, budget cutting would stop and that the Italian government's going to go bankrupt. I think it's a little far-fetched.
Well, hold it. You're saying that the government is gridlocked and they're fighting over austerity measures. Right. What does that remind us of?
Right, it really does. It has a U.S. feel to it.
The only difference is they have better pasta over there.
Well, it's funny. In Italy, they had a lot of tax hikes, and the people got very angry. They had sales tax hikes, they had real estate or land tax hikes, wealth tax hikes. So in other words, they cut spending, or supposedly, but they also raised taxes a lot. So that might be a signal, Republicans saying to Obama, okay, you had your tax hike, now it's time to cut spending. I don't think the problem is government austerity. I think the problem is private sector austerity. So government austerity, cutting the budget, I find is a good thing and pro-growth. I am for the sequester.
Yeah.
I think it's good for the economy. But when you start raising taxes, that's private sector austerity. That inhibits economic growth, and you're seeing that in a sense in Italy. I know politics in Italy are wilder than they are here, more disorganized.
Yeah.
But the point is, nobody had a majority. And I don't know how they're going to resolve this except to call another election. And so the market took a look at that, particularly in the last half hour, 40 minutes, thinking something might happen overnight, and they just sold off big time.
I want to pull on this sequester thread a little bit, Larry Kudlow. This is, I think, your strength, obviously, because you're the convergence of the economy, business, and politics. Your article last week, we cited it a lot with a lot of our guests. Yeah. You basically say this sequester is a pro-growth sequester.
Yes.
I need you to talk to all of the people who are listening right now who are looking at furlough slips in the mail, because, we reach a lot of the people who are going to be directly affected by this sequester. Explain to them how ultimately this is good for their bottom line and their microeconomy on a house-to-house basis.
And those specific people, it's not going to be good. Okay? There's no question it's not going to be good. On the other hand, let's take, I want to go to the military. This is where the biggest part is. We have increased the civilian population in the military massively in the last 10 years. Massively, okay? So why is this? Well, we went through 2 wars. Now we're pulling out of the wars. And I think the reality is, unfortunately for those who got jobs, the civilian population in the Pentagon has got to come down. It just has to. We cannot afford it. And this is an area where, in the aggregate for the whole economy, the government will spend less and tax less. And I'm sorry that those people get caught up in the flotsam and jetsam of this. And yes, there are always losers. But in the main, I believe limited government, lower spending, frees up the private sector. In other words, America's private sector does not have to support a civilian labor force in the Pentagon near the size we are supporting. It's that simple. And unfortunately, if you go across the government, the headcount in the federal government, which has gone up substantially in recent years under Republicans and Democrats, that headcount is too high. And that's going to have to be pared back. So, no, I can't guarantee that everybody's going to be happy about this. But the point I'm making is, if you look at the big picture, the overall economy strengthens. Those countries that spend less grow more. Those countries that spend more grow less. That is an economic axiom.
We got about a minute left, Larry, and I'm sort of coming to the realization that there's a lot of gamesmanship going on. I think a lot of these people who've been told you're going to be furloughed are actually in fear of how they're going to function, are sort of pawns in a big political game.
Well, yeah, of course they are. I mean, look, Janet Napolitano yesterday says we're not going to be able to fight terrorists if we have the sequester. Now, I ask you, her budget in 2013, after the sequester, is going to be bigger than her budget in 2012. So would you tell me why we can't fight terrorists with a bigger budget?
Yeah, that's
with this guy Ray LaHood at the the Transportation Department, who I don't know used to be a Republican. His budget today is higher than it was back in 2008.
Yeah.
We didn't have airplane shortages or long lines in 2008. You see, this is just the Washington Monument syndrome. This is just hype. This is just politics. We have got to move through this. I think
You're so right.
It would be a terrific thing. I really believe this. Let's get these spending cuts while we can and maintain the lower level. The economy will benefit.
With you. Yeah.
All right. Larry Kudlow, we got to roll. I know you're friends with John Boehner, though. Could you tell him to stop doing press conferences in front of the doomsday clock for the sequester? He's not helping. All right.
I will pass that on.
Thank you for joining.